Hello and welcome to the big picture. Last week, an issue which has been lying dormant, but albeit controversial, was reopened about whether Aligarh Muslim University and Jamia Millia Islamia were minority universities. The Attorney General of India has advised the government that Jamia is not a minority institution, while as regarding Aligarh Muslim University, the 1967 Supreme Court judgment which declared it as not a minority institution has been supported by this government. The question is, what is a minority institution and why is the controversy still not settled even after 68 years of independence? The other and more fundamental question is whether there is need for minority institutions, as some would like to argue. However, fact is, in this country, there are hundreds of minority educational institutions, both religious and linguistic, and still the controversy continues. We will today look at this entire controversy and discuss why it still remains controversial. To discuss this, I have with me Dr. Saida Hamid, former member, Planning Commission. Rakesh Sinha, Director, India Policy Foundation, will be joining us soon. Tahir Mahmood, former Chairman, National Commission for Minorities. Sanjay Hegde, Advocate in the Supreme Court. And Satya Prakash, Legal Editor, Hindustan Times. Welcome to all of you. Sanjay, why is this still such a major controversy? Why is this issue not settled so far, despite many judgments which have come from the Supreme Court?
There is no controversy as far as minority institutions are concerned. The controversy is with regard to minority universities. Now, institutions can be of all kinds, colleges, schools. There the Constitution specifically provides for it, that every minority, whether it's religious or linguistic, has a right to establish and administer an institution of their choice. Now, the Supreme Court way back in the 50s interpreted it saying that of their choice means anything, be it medical education, be it engineering. It is not as if it is confined only to minority studies or to religious instruction. Now comes the question of these universities. As far as the Aligarh Muslim University is concerned, it has had a separate history. Now, it started off as a college. Later, it became a university under an act of the imperial legislature before 1947. In 1947, when the constitution came in, even in the concurrent list, there was a provision in the 7th schedule that kept these 3 universities, Aligarh, Banaras and one more university, out of the purview of it.
Delhi University?
No, not Delhi University, but these were universities with a history of having been established by a particular community. The point thereafter is that there was a case in the 60s called Aziz Basha.
Right.
In Aziz Basha, the Supreme Court held that since the university was established, as it were, by an act of parliament, which, even though it was pre-constitutional, it was not as if a community established the university. They may have established the college, but not the university. That was the logic. Then there was an amendment to
the university, the Aligarh Muslim University was set up in a 1920 Act.
By the 1920 Act.
Right.
Before that, it was the Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College.
Yes.
Now, after all this, then in the 80s, there was the Aligarh Muslim University Act itself was amended, where the claim that it was established was by the Muslims was accepted.
1981.
1981. Now
an amendment in the parliament.
Yes. Now, the question of whether it is a minority established university has different consequences. One of the consequences, of course, being that how much of seats can it reserve for a minority, or within that minority, do you keep it for people who have some connection with the university, for students, staff, alumni, all those questions. In that context, some litigation has further arisen. And a stand has been taken now by the current government that there's nothing called a minority university. Universities are universities. While you can have minority educational institutions, you can't have a minority university.
Okay. Rakesh Sinha, Is what is the stand? What is your stand? What do you think is this government stand when it comes to these issues? Is it only the religious minority institutions that is being that is a problem, or even linguistic minority institutions you would take the same approach?
I think there is no problem. It is a constitutional question. Constitutional, because I am saying so because the Aligarh Muslim University has been established by the Act of the Parliament, and any secular state cannot establish any minority institution by the Act of Parliament. There is a categorically mentioned in Article 30, Clause 1, that the minority institution established and administered. The only institution that can be administered by the minority community which have been established by them. And this Aligarh Muslim University has the history that has been established by 124 Muslim gentlemen. They are the part of the process of establishment.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that it is a minority institution, because on that criteria, you see 80% institution of the country have been established by only Hindus. Then they would be the Hindu institutions. So we cannot create two sets of institutions in the country. My point here is that the minority institutions are exceptional cases to protect their script, to protect their religious teaching, and etc. But it is not a common thing. You are making exception as a common thing. I am giving one example. During the UPA regime, 2005 to 2013, mid-13, they have established more than 8,000 minority institutions. In a span of 60 days, 500 institutions were given the tag of minority institutions. This is a criteria. 42% institutions were established in Kerala, 18% in Uttar Pradesh. So you are just distributing the minority tag. And one more thing, I am not against the minority. There are certain minority institutions doing well. They should be, because Constitution permits that. But at the same time, you just go Andhra Pradesh, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, you will find there are many engineering colleges and the management institutions who are selling their seats to the majority community, because minority quota is not fulfilled by the minorities. So they have become the commercial shops. So I think that we must be careful while enjoying the constitutional right, Article 31. This should not be abused. It is the case of being abused.
No, you think it is a case of...
As far as Aligarh Muslim University is concerned.
Okay, Rakesh.
I'm just quoting one last line.
Okay.
Justice M.H. Beg rightly pointed out that these kind of institutions create two identity theory. So don't create a modern ghetto. Aligarh Muslim University should not be a modern ghetto. It should be a free institutions. It should attract the Muslims also, attract all the people from all the religions.
Okay.
Why it should attract only Muslims? Why it should be confined to the Muslims?
Okay. Dr. Hamid, now how would you react to it, that why create two separate identities? Why create these kind of two separate kind of institutions? Why create Rakesh Sinha is using the word ghetto.
Yeah, I noticed the use of the word ghetto, and my very humble submission is that I have seen this university grow since I was a very small child, and I have seen how the founders of this university, who they were, personal knowledge of them, and also the fact that they were people with a vision in education, and Jamia cannot be actually clubbed with Aligarh at all,
right?
Because I think that Jamia, the establishment of Jamia was a nationalistic alternative to Aligarh University. When the students of Aligarh, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's movement, decided to quit the Aligarh University, the question arose, what now? And that is where a bunch of courageous people, led by Maulana Mahmudul Hasan, who was also called the prisoner of Malta, and Maulana Muhammad Ali, Dr. Zakir Hussain, and other visionaries, decided that they would establish an institution, and Jamia came into existence on the 29th of October 1920. It was much later that the Jamia Act was proclaimed, and it was much later when the National Commission for Minorities Education Institution declared that a minority status was
granted to
Jamia could be given the status. Yeah, could be granted. Now, I just want to say one last thing, and that is that given the situation of the minority community, as has been very well established by the Sachar Committee report, I think what this has done is, this minority institution status given to Jamia has been that a kind of a level playing field is trying, there is an effort to create a level playing field for the minority students, and this is one way of looking at it.
Okay. I mean, and Dr. Tahir Mahmood, is that I'll come to
let small intervention.
No, Rakesh, let Dr. Mahmood come in.
Because
Okay, very quickly.
He raised one very fundamental question, so I'm
very quickly.
Commission has not established that not a single Muslim has been discriminated in any educational institution while he or she approached for admission or the appointment.
Okay.
So
I mean, we are not discussing. No, we are not discussing Sachar Committee.
Why the modern ghettos you want to create?
We are not discussing Sachar Committee. Dr. Tahir Mahmood, is that how you look at it? And also both the Aligarh Muslim University and Jamia, though they are different cases, but the question of whether both are minority institutions are still fundamental to the problem which we are facing now.
In my considered opinion, whether an institution has been established by a minority community is a question of fact. It's not a question of law to be decided by the courts of law or by a lawyer or by an attorney general or anybody. It's a question of fact, and it's a historical fact that both Aligarh and Jamia Millia were established by the Muslims of India. This is a historical fact which nobody can deny. The problem arises because people think that establishment and incorporation under an act are the same things. There is a world of difference between the two. Establishing a university and incorporating a university under an act. Aligarh University was incorporated as a university. Mohammedan Anglo-Oriental College, established by the great Sir Syed, was incorporated as a university under the 1920 Aligarh Muslim University Act. Jamia Millia Islamia, established by, as Dr. Sayyida Hamid said, established by people like Maulana Muhammad Ali Jawhar and Dr. Zakir Hussain and so on, with the blessings of Mahatma Gandhi, it was incorporated as a university under an act of 1988. This fact of incorporation under these statutes does not obliterate the history of these universities.
That's right, sir.
Establishment is very different.
No,
The problem is, let me complete.
Dr. Mahmood, my question, no, please, you can complete, but my simple point is here. If this, as you say, as you rightly point out, it's a fact, it's a question of fact and not a question of law. But why do you think that, all these years, this controversy still remains, the status of these two universities still have been under question?
Yes, I have already answered it because people confuse the two terms establishment and incorporation. Unfortunately, those who have drafted the Constitution under Article 30, they use the word establish. And they might not have imagined that the word establish would become equivalent to incorporation under an act. A university cannot be set up without an act. A university must get a statute, either of parliament or of state legislature. And therefore, that is a necessity. It's a technical necessity. But that technical necessity does not mean that the historical fact of the university having been established by a particular committee would be obliterated. By that standard, we should say that India got it. Well, let me please one sentence more.
Yeah.
And that by that standard, we should say that India became independent under the Indian Independence Act because of the Indian Independence Act passed by British Parliament. and the history of the independence of India, how India gained independence, that would be obliterated because the Independence Act of 1947 says that British government has agreed to grant independence to India.
Okay, that's an interesting.
It amounts to the same thing.
That's an interesting analogy you're giving. Satya Prakash, what is it before the Supreme Court right now? Because, you know, it's very interesting that we are told that actually the fact that what the Attorney General is talking about is different from what is before the Supreme Court.
Well, what the Supreme Court is deciding, or rather the issue before the Supreme Court, it arises from an order of the Allahabad High Court.
Right.
The 50% reservation.
It was a 2005 order, if I'm right.
From 2005 and 6.
Yeah.
The 50% reservation given to Muslim students in PG courses and medical courses, that was challenged before the Allahabad High Court, and Allahabad High Court in its verdict said the 1967 verdict in Aziz Basa case that still holds good, and if it holds good, then the entire progression that has taken place from 1920 to 1951 amendment and then further amendment in 1981, that everything gets obliterated, and then 1967 verdict which says that it is not a minority institution, that comes into picture. And then that verdict was challenged by the central government before the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court is still seized of the matter. With the change of the government, new government has said that the earlier government's stand doesn't hold good, and we have a different stand.
The earlier government had taken a stand. What stand did the earlier government?
Earlier government had challenged the Allahabad High Court.
Challenged the Allahabad High Court.
Now this government is saying the earlier government had taken a wrong stand, and we want to change the stand. The court asked the Attorney General to file a fresh affidavit. The hearing is in April. But what is important is, here as Dr. Tahir Mahmood said, the issue of establishment should not be confused with incorporation. But unfortunately, law will go by technicalities, and that is why the Supreme Court in 1967 held it. Second is, here is a question: can the government, by an act of parliament, establish an institution, rather a university, which is minority in its character? Because the moment you say it's minority institution, the minorities, they will of course get 50% or so. They get the right to administer it. Second is the SC/ST quota is ruled out, and of course the
SC/ST and OBC quota.
OBC quota is. So there are implications of that. The real issue is, can in a secular state government establish and run minority institutions? That is the issue the Supreme Court will, I suppose, will take up, and I'm afraid it will have to be referred to a constitution bench, because the earlier verdicts in TMAPI or Inamdar and all, in all these issues, the issue was admission, procedure, the fee regulation and rest of the issues. Here the issue is the very character of the institution, and the fact the court will have to go into the issue whether the government, by an act of parliament, establish a minority institution, because India is a secular state. That is what the Attorney General has raised.
Sanjay, is that the issue?
Well, these are arguments. What issue?
What is it?
What issue the court will finally consider is something funny.
Okay.
In the sense that
whether Parliament has first.
No. Please let me just point out. It is the government of India which has come in an appeal from the Allahabad High Court judgment. Now the government of India is taking a stand contrary to the previous government that appealed against the minority government. So if an affidavit like this is filed, then the court can very well look at them and say, okay, since you don't have a problem with what the Allahabad High Court has decided, just withdraw your appeal, that's it. Or we'll dismiss your appeal. No, so therefore, please, the court very advisedly asked the Attorney General to put the stand of the government on affidavit. There will be consequences to that. And it may well be that the court may not give any decision beyond dismissing the appeal.
But then there are other parties to the dispute also. So they will insist that the court must hear it and it must be referred to.
But the court is not bound to hear it if the main petitioner is not interested.
So you mean to say that it will go back to if the Supreme Court takes it?
Then the Allahabad High Court verdict will stand.
Will stand. And the Allahabad High Court verdict is? 1967 judgment.
Is that the earlier declaration by the Supreme Court that it is not a minority institution, that will stand.
That will stand. Okay, if that stands, Dr. Saida Hamid, how do you, I mean, what will be the impact of that? What will be the, if even as of now, there is a lot of confusion in the case of Jamia, whether 50% seats can be reserved for Muslims. Same is the case in the Aligarh Muslim University. You think that, that is something which is sacrosanct, which these two universities, you think should have that powers to reserve 50% of the seats for minorities, for Muslims?
Girish, I just want to come back.
I feel that this is very sacrosanct. I think these institutions should have the power to reserve these seats for Muslims simply because of the real situation which exists on the ground. And unless we give, and even among the Muslims, it's not just the elite Muslims, it's the others who are, if you do the diversity index, you can also do a diversity index within the Muslim community. It is really the children of deprived and underprivileged classes who really are now getting a chance to get professional degrees, and wonderful stories are coming forward where children of drivers and children of fourth class employees have become professionals, and that is only possible when they have, as I said earlier, a level playing field, which institution like Jamia with this 50% reservation is allowing them. And let me tell you one thing, I live in the campus, I'm here 24/7, and the diversity and the different kinds of students of every community that I see, throngs and throngs of them, it is such a beautiful mosaic. Why are we politicizing it, and why are we interfering it in something which is like a rainbow? I really don't understand what all this commotion is all about when the events are going in front of me. The panorama goes, people who are sitting all around and who are not seeing this happening on a daily basis. I'm a Chashmdeed Gawah of what goes on every day.
Okay.
And I see that diversity of the country reflected in Jamia University.
Okay. Rakesh, when you're talking, when you're saying that this should not be done, this should not be created, do you have the same approach when it comes to linguistic minorities? Because in different states you have different linguistic minorities having established institutions like in almost every state of this country. Would you have the same approach towards them?
No. Nigamji, nobody is questioning the establishment of the minority institution, because the Constitution gives the right to minorities to establish and administer their institutions. Here is the question confined to the Aligarh Muslim University. That has been by the Parliament, Act of the Parliament, that has already been discussed in the Allahabad High Court. It has been deliberated in the Allahabad High Court. The people have given that it was incorporated, it has been established by the Act of Parliament. That has already been decided by the Allahabad High Court. It is by the Act of the Parliament, university has been established. A college is not promoted in the university. An university has been established. That time there was no controversy when it is a free institution. Second, my point is that we should not guide it by the colonial hangover. During the colonial period, there were different forces and different kind of thoughts were prevailing. And that time, the various universities were established and colleges were established. We are now in free India, a secular country where diversity should prevail. I agree that there should be diversity in the Aligarh Muslim University. We want to save that diversity. You want to create a monolith in the university by creating 50% reservation of the Muslims, and that 50%, mostly the upper caste Muslims, Sayyid, Pathan, Mughals are beneficiary, not the Lal Begi, Ansari and others. Mostly the Aligarh Muslim University is still dominated by 60 years after independence, by the upper caste Muslims, not the backward caste Muslims. That's why I say, kindly promote education among Muslims. There are institutions open for the Muslims. Where is the question of discrimination? Has the university devoured any Muslim? Has Jawaharlal University devoured any Muslim?
Okay, Dr. Tahir Mahmood, how do you react to that? That this reservation also is only for the affluent, the elite among the Muslims.
I would like to talk of the argument that a secular state cannot run a minority institution.
Right.
My answer is that we are a very typical and a special kind of a secular state. We are a secular state with a constitutional mandate for protecting the cow. We are a secular state with a constitutional mandate for protecting the Kirpan for the Sikh community. We are a constitutional state which directs the states of Tamil Nadu and Kerala to provide annuities for the maintenance of the Devasam Hindu temples. So this constitution, under this kind of secularism, has also provided for the establishment of educational institutions by the universities, giving them a sort of an autonomy so that they can come on par with the majority community. And there was nothing preventing the framers of the Constitution from saying in Article 30 that the minorities can establish any educational institution except a university. If an exception was meant, it could have been specified. It must have been specified in the Constitution. The framers of the Constitution did not have this difference, this idea in their mind that a university cannot be established by them. They knew that Aligarh was already established by the Muslims. They knew that Banaras Hindu University had been established by Madan Mohan Malviya. And so that is why they had put these universities by name within the Constitution. They did not delete the word Muslim or the word Hindu from the names of these universities. So the intentions of the framers of the Constitution were very different from what the intentions of the present interpreters of the Constitution are.
Okay, that's very interesting. Yes, you wanted to interact.
See, you had asked Professor Sinha. Just 1 minute, Professor Sinha.
Rakesh, 1 minute. Let him.
The point is, we need not see minority rights only through the prism of Muslim politics.
No, it's a larger issue.
No, there are so many linguistic minorities. Right. You have Tamil-speaking minorities in Karnataka establishing.
Even religious minorities.
Even the TMA Pi institution, which led to the 11-judge bench,
right,
sought to say that it was a Konkani-speaking linguistic minority within within Karnataka. So the point is, the Constitution advisedly made provisions for minority educational institutions of their choice. And as Professor Mahmood just now said, it did not confine it to only colleges or only madrasas or only nursery schools of their choice. So a university is as much an institution as anything else. The question is, what is the mechanism by which you can incorporate a university? You need an act of a sovereign legislature, whether it is parliament or of any of the states of India. And that compliance does not necessarily take away the history preceding it.
Okay. Very quickly, Rakesh.
Just two quick points. The Article 31, Article 30 is intended to protect minorities from the majority's domination. That's why they have been given rights. But I am talking in the post-independent India, we cannot do the reverse secularism. What Tahir Mahmood is saying, that is the
so you are saying
reverse secularism. Why you are creating two identities?
Okay.
Where there is there is no majority domination in this country. There is a majority, but there is not majority in politics.
So
don't divide the majority minority in such a way.
Rakesh, you're challenging the Constitution itself by what you're saying virtually.
Absolutely. It is post-independence.
Post-independence that minority rights, Article 30 is all part of the Constitution, and you are saying that it is not necessary.
Strengthen the secularism, not to weaken the secularism.
Okay. Anyway,
they are using Article 30 to weaken the secularism.
Very quickly, sir. Okay. Anyway, we are completely run out of time.
Just
but this is very quickly.
It's likely to go to the Constitution bench, even if the government withdraws the case.
Okay, I think this is something which we'll have to wait and watch. Ultimately, the Supreme Court will have to decide on this matter, which is a very important matter, and it is high time that this issue needs to be settled. It's nearly 70 years since this problem has been, revisiting us periodically. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture same time tomorrow.